CashFlowDiary Podcast, episode 311.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the CashFlowDiary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other CashFlow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm really excited today because we're going to have the same conversation, but a completely different slant because today's guest is uniquely qualified to help us understand entrepreneurship on a completely different level. And you're like, what on earth is he talking about? I know. You're like, how is that possible? We're hundreds of episodes. What on earth could someone bring new? Well, I'm here to tell you that a new perspective is about to be revealed. I'm going to say that some of you are probably going to actually grab your cape and tights today and get out there and start saving some people's lives because I have with me today. Are you ready for this? Chuck Dixon. You're like, who's that? No, some of you know who that is. I'm talking about the guy who writes comic books. This is going to be awesome. Why? Because if you have ever heard of The Punisher, Batman, Nightwing, Robin, or The Hobbit, you probably have read something of his. And you're like, oh my goodness, this is going to be fun. I'm excited. You're excited. But how does that relate into entrepreneurship? Because see, I'm going to bet that you are going to learn something today in a different way that will help you move forward. So help me welcome Mr. Chuck Dixon. Chuck, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How are you, sir?
I am doing great.
Okay, I got to tell everybody and you, I ask all of our guests the first time they're here the same question. So asking you this question is going to be fun for me, simply because of how the nature of the question and what you do. So here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like, yesterday's superheroes. Normally I say people like Batman, Robin, the Hulk, Superman, Spider-Man, all of those characters that you are more than familiar with. And I think entrepreneurs have a lot in common with superheroes. They occasionally get dressed up, they put on capes and types, or at least we think we are, and we go out there and swoop down and save our customers, right? But I also believe that entrepreneurs are like superheroes in that they had a beginning. Before Spider-Man was, Spider-Man, he was just Peter Parker taking photos and a student. And they all have an origin story. So what I would really like to know is before your stints with the, DC and Marvel and just all the places that you go to write, what I would love to know is who is Chuck Dixon?
Well, I'm just a guy who doesn't have any other talent other than writing comics. So I had no other, talent or interest or skill. And so I just sort of aimed my whole life at this job, which meant a lot of years of working jobs I didn't like until I was able to work full time as a self-employed freelancer.
Okay.
And that's been 30 years, knock on wood, that I've been busy writing comics.
Okay, but this is perfect because there are two very specific things that I know that a lot of entrepreneurs have felt before is you clearly state, I could do nothing else. You had no other talent. But the one I want to focus on first is that you said you had to spend years doing other things in order to get to we'll call it your dream or the destination or where you are today. What were some of those other things?
I worked as a janitor, drove an ice cream truck, a security guard, just any kind of dead end job that basically didn't take my mind away from writing and would keep me alive give me a place to live, and allow me some time to write and think of things, so that I could take runs at the various comic book companies, taking interviews and things. That was like 10 years of interviews.
Oh, wow.
And things like that. So.
Yeah, and see, this is the story that I like, is because, well, one, I think there was a strategy. It seemed to be there was a strategy in the jobs you took, because you specifically said that you didn't want it to take your mind away. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I saw people who like wanted to become artists or writers, and they took jobs in areas that were akin to that, doing silkscreen T-shirts for the artist, or doing paste up at an advertising agency. For writers, the same thing, writing for an ad agency. And it was taking all of the energy away from what they wanted to do. They wanted to, be writers or be artists, but they were spending all day sort of being writers and artists, or for somebody else. And so by the time you get home at night, there's no energy left. Working as a janitor, there's really nothing on my mind at all day long, but thinking up crazy stories. So security guard, even better. I could actually write, sitting at a desk, listening to radio calls. So, I didn't want to take a job akin, plus, what's akin to writing comics? Really nothing.
Yeah, there's so many. I was going to get to that in a second, but there's so many unique things from the outsider's perspective of being able to write anything, let alone write something as specific as a comic book and do well at it for a significant period of time. It's like that. All of those things are completely different levels. But I think there's something interesting that you've tapped into, and I'm curious to how you found out, because we all have a limited amount of, we'll call it creative energy given to us on a daily basis. But you knew yours. You somehow innately knew yours was limited, and you're like, look, if I'm going to do this, I don't want to give it to someone else. I want it for my thing. So I've got to find something completely opposite to do. How did you know that?
Well, part of it, I knew it, that I didn't want to do what I didn't want to do. Also, I didn't have a college education, so my job prospects were limited anyway. It's not like I could go into anything, that required a college education or prior experience. So I was at the low level of the job chain, just sort of, those people you see doing stuff that you're glad they're doing it, not you.
Right. You're like, what option did I have? I can relate to this. I can totally relate to this. But yet that is still amazing, because in my opinion, it takes extra work to know that you're doing, to be focused on the purpose. And I think it puts additional pressure on you when you actually go to write, because you're like, okay, so that I never have to go back to that toilet thing again. I've got to do this writing thing.
Yeah. My role model for choosing careers was Blackbeard the pirate, because Blackbeard would set fire to his own ship to motivate his men to take the next one, because there was no going back. So that was when people would say, well, what's your backup plan? Don't you have anything to fall back on? I said, no, I'm Blackbeard the pirate. I'm not going backwards. I'm going forward.
No, but I'm hoping this works out. And if not, we'll figure it out. I get that. I can relate so much to that. So, you mentioned a second ago, and I'm really curious, because there's always this unveiling, just like in a comic book, right? During the beginning, the superhero doesn't really know that they're super until a series of events transpire, and then all of a sudden they find out, oh my God, I have this gift that I can use it, or then they have to make the choice to use it for good or evil. But my question is, how do you find out that, hey, comic book writing, this is my thing? Like, you didn't wake up one day and go, I know, I write comic books, or did you?
Well, I liked comics even before I could read, because they're pictures. You can read the story without knowing the words. And growing up, I was a sickly kid. I'm not now. I'm 6'3". I'm perfectly healthy. But when I was a kid, I had some problems, a lot of hospital stays, things like that. And comics were like an escape for me. They were portable, and presented this whole world. And I think I just began to think in terms of static pictures, think of stories in terms of, a series of pictures. And it just sort of entered my DNA. So that I always knew I could do it. I always knew it was like a language. I understood this language and I was fluent in it. And it was just convincing others that I could do it.
No doubt. And getting them to pay you for it, no doubt, no less.
Yes.
He's like, I can do this. No, you can't. Prove it. I'm trying. Let me. Yeah, I can sense the catch-22 with that. So here's a question that I've always wondered, because my wife is definitely a comic book fan, and I have been educated through her. Grew up overseas, so I really didn't get exposed to comics too much. I will say this. I did read Archie, for those of you wondering, but that's about it. That was the extent of my comic book, experience before my wife. But I'm still always curious, how on earth do you guys come up with these characters and their stories and their ability? I mean, it seems like a lot of work. But I'm just curious, is there a process to it? You got a formula? I mean, is there an app for that?
Well, until recently, it's superheroes are sort of in a gray area now. But until recently, superheroes particularly were it's a wish fulfillment fantasy. It's like, well, if I was only this guy for a few minutes, if I could be the Hulk for 5 minutes, I'd straighten that car mechanic out. So it's mostly a male wish fulfillment fantasy. I'm going to be the guy who solves the problem. I'm going to fix this. And, because guys always think they can fix everything. And that's really the basis of it. And then it's just finding variations on all of those themes. I mean, it's a classic theme. It goes all the way back to Hercules. I mean, it's kind of, wired into our brains, these kind of characters. So, it's just trying to find a different angle on it. And trying to dredge up something new that hasn't been done with characters that in some cases are 75 years old. Interesting.
Well, you mentioned that it was a male wish fulfillment idea, and yet there are female characters, or maybe I misunderstood exactly what you meant, because I was, when you said that, I was like, well, what about Wonder Woman and Black Widow? That was the first thing that came to my head, and I don't know if how they fit into that, what you just described.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm basically talking about the until recently there's ups and downs in the female portion of our readership. I mean, once upon a time, girls drove the comic book industry. The biggest selling comics, you mentioned Archie, and there were a lot of others. The biggest selling comics sold to girls. And then for a long time, it became a strictly male world. And now it's changing. We're seeing more and more, girl power characters. So that's entering into it, that you're seeing more female characters, but they're not quite the bully, macho, I'm going to get angry and knock everybody down kind of characters. There's more story and human interest involved, because guys will read about two guys punching each other for 20 pages and feel they had a good time, but women, they want more of a story, something a little more sophisticated than that.
Yes, like I get it. He punched him back. Yay! I understood. But you mentioned something that was kind of as an aside, but you said comic books or superheroes are kind of in a gray area. What do you mean?
Well, these days there's a little bit of moral equivocation amongst superheroes, where they have feet of clay and they're questioning their motives and questioning what they do and what I'm doing right. I mean, recently Superman disavowed being an American citizen. Things like that. It's not something I like. I like to leave the characters the way they are. I like them iconic and left the way they are, but the publishers can't resist playing with the characters. And, you can see it, particularly on the DC side, you can see it in the movies, and the movies reflect the comics, that they're kind of dark and dismal. Whereas over on the Marvel side, there's, still blue sky and a happy ending.
Yes. Okay. I get it. I got it. Okay. Yeah. What did we see? It's the one that recently came out. It was, oh man, with the Suicide Squad. I'm like, yeah. I don't know anything about it, and I'm just kind of following along, trying to understand what's going on. And I can understand with what you just said. I saw a lot of that inside of what you just inside of that movie, based upon what you just said. And so, is that part of the normal superhero journey, or do they always just, because for what I can infer from what you're saying is I just want them to be shiny, happy endings all the time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, superheroes basically it's a childhood thing. Let's face it. I'm a grown man. I write superheroes, and I'm good at it, and I like it, and I enjoy it. But I know that these are really for little kids. It's a guy in underwear and boots and a cape flying around. This isn't adult material. And the mistake that comic companies make is when they try to, DC and Marvel, is when they try to grow the characters up, when they try to mature them. And I'm sorry, but a guy in long underwear and boots and a cape it's kind of freaky when he starts acting more like a real person. If he's having real human relationships and stuff like that, it gets a little perverse. Whereas when it's a kid, there's this innocence about Superman, even Batman. There's an innocence about it, and when you take that away, it gives me the creeps. Got it.
Yeah, that last Batman versus Superman, I saw Batman in a completely different way. I remembered that. I remember thinking that. I was like, oh, this isn't the other Batmans that I've had to watch. This is a different Batman in some way, shape, or form. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. I mean, Batman's a bit of a jerk now. So, right. And Superman, he's a bit of a jerk too. I mean, these are not characters who are ever supposed to be jerks. These are paragons. They're iconic characters that you're supposed to look up to. I mean, I know I looked up to Batman when I was a kid. He was a role model. I wouldn't do anything Batman wouldn't do. And now today, there's nothing Batman wouldn't do. So he's not much of a role model.
Got it. So I guess then during your 30-year stint, there's been a significant change, not just, I mean, I guess to the characters in and of themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a change I resisted for a long time, but I haven't worked at DC and Marvel for a while because, I think it was pretty much mutual that we don't see eye to eye on how these characters are presented. So, I moved on to other companies, doing G.I. Joe and The Simpsons and SpongeBob, where they're more true to their base character. They're more true to what the creator had in mind.
Got it. So, you mentioned something that I think is interesting because you said comic books are, for, we'll call it young people, the younger generation. The medium through which comic books are communicated, I'm assuming they're more digital now, or is it still the book, or what?
Digital has risen. I mean, for years, people were saying, what do you think the future of digital comics are? I'm like, I have no idea. Nobody knows. You can guess. But I've been surprised that digital is doing quite well. And I suppose, obviously, it's because we have a worldwide audience now, and it's cheaper to deliver, than paper. And so, sales on digital have been good. But sales on print, it wafts and wanes, it goes up and down. But for the medium as a whole, beyond superheroes, comic sales are healthy, especially in the more high-end graphic novels and trade paperbacks. They, quite a few of them do, very well.
Interesting. Okay. So then from your perspective, would you say today's youth don't really get the, they're getting, for lack of a better word, a perverted view of what comic book heroes are supposed to be?
Well, I don't think many young people read comics. That's another problem. The fan base has aged, to where we're getting into, middle-aged, readers. There's not that many young people reading them anymore. When the comic book companies made a decision to basically abandon the newsstand, not have comics at grocery stores and places like that, we lost a generation because there was no entry-level market for comics anymore. Kids didn't see comics anymore. Today, the first place kids are exposed to comics is at the public library, believe it or not.
The library has comic books?
Yeah. Libraries love comic books because kids will come in. They'll actually be borrowing books. So, they love them because it's a robust area of their selection. I've met with librarians and they just love the hell out of comics. And so kids will see them there, but they're not as prevalent in the rest of society. When I was a kid, there were comics everywhere. You went to the barber shop, there was a stack of comics. You went to the drugstore, there was a spin rack of comics. You went to the farmer's market, they were selling bundles of comics. They were everywhere you went, and all your friends had comics. And that's just not true today. So it's become more of a boutique or fan-oriented market.
Interesting. So as a writer, then, because you alluded to it, your means of continuing to make the career has been to switch to different areas of comic books or different companies. Help me understand.
Yeah. I'm real flexible. I love the medium. I love the characters. I love Batman, Spider-Man, all those, but I really love the medium. I love telling stories that way. So I've been able to get work in other areas. I've done work for comic book companies in India, in Italy, in Great Britain, in Sweden. So, there's a lot of work around. And, and there's these things called motion comics, which are a digital comic with a little bit of animation in each panel. There's a lot of different areas. I'm doing a comic right now for the United States Navy, a graphic novel. So there's a lot out there beyond DC and Marvel. I'm always busy. I've always got work.
Did you say the United States Navy?
Yes. Yeah, they're doing it. They're getting everybody who the United States Navy publishes books through the Naval Institute Press, which they were the first ones to publish Hunt for the Red October. So they actually will occasionally publish a bestseller. They're a money-making prospect. They do turn a profit. So it's not a taxpayer boondoggle. I'm not taking subsidy. It's a profit oriented, and the book that I'm working on, they are anticipating will do very well.
Right now, I just learned something. That's all I know. It's like, what? I mean, there's just so many facets. There's more facets than what I've known. I mean, I'm just diving into your world. So here's probably a strange question that I'm assuming you've gotten before. So on a typical day, do you, like, when you're out and about at Starbucks or wherever, do you, like, instantly see those little thought bubbles above people's heads as they're walking around? I mean, I can only imagine what the world looks like through your eyes.
I don't see that, but I do see, like, panel compositions, because I'll picture the pages as I'm writing them. They don't turn out the way I pictured them, but I sort of, as a tool, picture the pages as I'm writing them to balance the visuals with the words. And I will see panel compositions. I will see sequences sometimes, but nothing, that precludes me from driving a car or anything.
Got it. So now, tell the truth here. Are any of your friends in any of the books you've ever written, like in some way, shape, or form?
Okay. Now, I often tell my friends, anyway, that there are two types of people that you always have to be nice to. One, writers. Two, photographers. Because they're the ones who have all the dirt. I mean, think about it. If you've ever had a picture taken, occasionally you get those bad frames, and you hope that those go straight to the cutting room floor and don't end up on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, or something of that nature. Remember that next time you're talking to the photographer or the writer. If your friend's a writer, you probably have ended up in some story or been the inspiration. Here's the thing. That life experience that you are currently having should be your inspiration as well as to why you need to go out there, make something happen, become a bigger, better business owner, real estate investor, and go out there and kill it. If you want some inspiration, pick some up from me for free. Just go to CashFlowDiary.com/free book. Again, CashFlowDiary.com/free book. Get a free copy of CashFlow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. We'll send you a PDF version immediately. Now, let's get back and find out if life imitates art or art is a reflection of life.
Well, as Nietzsche said, a writer uses his own and his friends' intellect. So, yeah, I've used people that I know in a lot of stuff I've written. My wife can't even look at my comics anymore because she said, "Didn't I say that?" I'm like, yeah. Took something to say.
Yes, you did, darling. Thank you. And we get to eat today because you did. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is. That's her contribution. That's pretty funny. That I can only imagine people. Oh man, that's got to be some interesting conversations between you two. So when it comes to the idea of, writing comics as a business, what would you say has been like the biggest, like if you were talking to the 30-year ago version of yourself, what would you be like what would you say to that Chuck Dixon?
I would say get some money up front.
Got it.
Which is what I do now. I mean, because, I hear from people all the time, I want to do a comic. And a lot of times they don't understand how much it costs. It's not a cheap process.
Oh.
For a book publisher, it's not bad. For Hollywood, it's money found under the sofa cushions. It's peanuts. But it's not an inexpensive process. And my first two questions are, do you have money, and where does it come from? And those are my two most important questions. Because do you have money? Yes, isn't enough of an answer, because you might have that money now, but not have it when it comes time to pay me.
Got it. How much does it cost to make a comic book? I mean, I really have no. Are you talking about like one issue or like a whole series?
Well, if you're dealing with graphic novels, which have to be at least 100 pages long, and you're looking at between $800 and $1,000 a page.
Did you say a
to
page?
Produce a quality? Yeah, to produce a quality full color comic, and that's from the writing through the art, the lettering, and the coloring, and then because it's a bit of a prospect. But when we're dealing with book publishers who routinely sign $500,000 advances for prose authors, it's not that daunting a prospect. But for someone starting up, there's a famous saying in comics. It's probably in other businesses, same saying for other businesses too. If you want to make $1 million in comics, you start with $2 million.
Right.
And I've seen many worked for many companies that went out of business.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. When you said that, it just occurred to me. You put the words in there. You don't actually put the pictures in there, and someone else colors those pictures. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah, there's me. Yes.
The next step in the process is the penciler, and he literally draws in pencil, either on digitally on a tablet or on paper, and then the work is generally inked. This is the guy who has the job no one understands outside of comics. He will delineate the pencil drawings. He will go over them with India ink, but he's not tracing them. He's doing more than that. He's adding weight and form. He's embellishing the pencil drawings.
Got
Then
it.
Then there's a letterer who puts the little word balloons in with the words, and then someone colors it. And lettering and coloring are both done digitally now.
Wow. Okay.
And everybody's got to be paid.
Yeah. Now like I said, I'm learning things, but I like this. This is still but you're the first in the chain, yes?
Yeah. It all starts with me and a blank computer monitor. So
no pressure there.
Yeah, really. No, it's fun. I love it. I never feel pressure.
Okay, now, but aren't most of these characters someone else created, or are these, and you have to pick up the story and write it?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I own, what we call creator-owned properties, which
Yes.
basically I own it. I maintain the copyright, and a publisher publishes it, and they have the right to publish it for a certain period, but then those rights return to me fully. Walking Dead is an example of a creator-owned comic book that went on to obviously greater success. But there's quite a few movies out there that people aren't even aware are based on creator-owned comics. So it's my career is divided between what we call work for hire, which would be working on Batman or something else I don't own,
right,
and creator-owned. I have about a dozen creator-owned properties, which are in play.
That's cool. That seems like that would be the more profitable way to go.
You got to have both. You got
is that right?
Because creator-owned, I always tell guys who work 20 years at the companies, eventually they're not going to want you anymore. Your star will fade, your window closes, and then what do? I said, if you don't have a few creator-owned properties, you're in trouble. So I always say creator-owned is your retirement.
Got it.
You've got to have that in place, something that you own that you're getting money from, without working for it again.
Hey, we speak cash flow around here, and that's why that one intrigued me, because that's what I was sensing. It sounded like you owned something and someone else handled the marketing and everything else that goes along with it. And I'm assuming it's a royalty basis then?
Yeah, you're paid on a per issue basis. And there's also, particularly at DC Comics, they once upon a time had a participation program, which I was lucky enough to be involved with in the 90s, And if you created new characters for them, if they went on to become toys or games or whatever, you got a piece in perpetuity.
Wow.
So I've done all right off of a couple of things I created. I co-created the Batman villain Bane.
Oh, no, you did not. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, then I gotta tell you thank you, because until I've seen a lot of villains, because my wife has exposed me to a ton of these characters, right? And I'm like, he's my favorite villain. He's like, yeah. I'm like, that guy. That's the one. That I don't know. I'm just telling you, thank you. That's awesome, because
I'm one of Bane's daddies.
Who's your daddy? I like it. That's good. That is amazing. Because I don't know what it is about him, but he's like, yes, I get him. I get all these other villains. I'm like, whatever. Like, Joker, what's your deal, dude? You just messed up. I don't get you. But anyway, it is all. This is awesome. Okay, so anytime Bane is mentioned and all this other stuff, that's cool. I like that, because that's cash flow, and you don't have to do that all over. So was that an angry period during your life?
No.
Got it.
I just, we needed a real bad guy at the time to incapacitate Batman. To break his back and put him out of action for a couple of years. And so they gave me the job of creating this really, really bad guy.
Wow. That's hopefully none of your friends contributed to Bane and see themselves in him, because that would be very unfortunate for them, but fortunate for you. So I'm curious, when it comes to, do you like set aside time to just go, you know what, this week, this month, I'm just going to create a new character? Do you just flip a switch? I mean, how does that even come about?
Well, creating new characters is tough, because that's why I got the job of Bane, because I complained so much to the Batman group at the time, that this character had to be popular. And in order, how do you mean to create a popular character? I mean, what do you put in? What are the ingredients? We don't know if the fans are going to respond to him or not. And that's when the editor said, well, if you think it's going to be so damn hard, you do it. So, and it was a lot of time thinking about what are the elements that would make him, popular. What does he want? How, even though he's a bad guy, how do we relate to him? And Bane's thing is that he was, in the comics, he was sentenced to serve the life of his father. He's literally born in prison to serve a life sentence. He's never known anything but a prison. And that makes him a very sympathetic character, even though he's a rotten guy and does horrible things. You always think back, my God, this guy's childhood was the worst anyone could possibly imagine.
Yeah. that might be an understatement, because we wouldn't imagine that.
No, I wouldn't, certainly.
Well, it's your job to imagine that.
Yes.
So that's kind of where that is. Okay. So with all of this experience, what are some of the, current projects or oddball things you've been asked to do when people, approach you today?
Well, I mean, I just did a book called Clinton Cash. It's a graphic novel adaptation of Peter Schweitzer's book about the Clinton Foundation and their questionable ethics when it comes to accepting foreign donations. So that I had to turn, basically a fact-filled book with dates and names and people into a comic. And thank God Peter let us go nuts. He let us just take his material and just lose our minds and go crazy because, we needed visuals. It's a visually driven medium. So the book is very high parody, has a very mocking tone, but gets serious now and then. So there's a mixture of the absurd and the dramatic, like the story. I think the story is absurd.
And just so that I'm clear and everyone else is clear, did you just say you created a political comic book?
Yes. Yeah, it is a political comic book.
Okay. Got it. On the Clinton administration. That's going to be
yes.
Great. I'm just you had more than enough material.
Yeah, well, Peter's book. I mean, we had to leave stuff out. There just wasn't enough room. Could have gone on and on and on. But it was probably one of the more challenging things I've done. But like anything else, the publisher and Peter had faith in me, and that makes all the difference.
Why? Okay, so why was that challenging? Because you weren't making it up, or because it was based on something real?
Well, there's no, it's not like the book I'm currently doing for the Navy is set during the Vietnam War, and there's all kinds of action. It's a war comic. There's tanks and guns and explosions, everything else, and suspense. Clinton Cash is basically people sitting in rooms and getting in and out of cars and getting on and off private jets, and briefcases being handed to people. It's visually it's dull. When you read about it, it's engaging because you're in your mind, you're like, oh my God, that much money? But in a comic, you need more of an immediate experience, more something on every page to grab the eye and draw the reader forward. So mining the book for visuals, and also how to make some of the stuff in the book analogous to visuals is like we had Bill Clinton keeping a chalkboard where he recorded his speaking fees, and we would show him occasionally erase. We would go back to him, and he would erase the figure and write a higher one, as his fees went up. Things like that. There's a scene with an African warlord hunting giraffes from his golf cart, which is mentioned briefly in the book as an aside, but I turned it into a whole page.
Got it.
It's a great visual.
Got it. Yeah, that would be difficult now that you mention it, because it's not like there's any late night Vegas hotel parties where he's just, raining dollar bills from the ceiling or anything.
No, there's no Scarface type scenes. I mean, we have a chapter on India and dealing with the Indian nuclear industry, and we did the chapter like a Bollywood movie. There's lots of elephants painted white and people dancing and things like that. So but God bless Peter, he really did let us take his little baby away and and do silly things with it.
Got it. Totally understood. So in the world that you live in, because I firmly believe it's completely different than the world we live in, because you have to see things in a completely different way. What on earth keeps you actually entertained?
I mean, on a personal basis.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out. You spend so much time entertaining us. How do you stay entertained?
Yeah, I want other people to tell me stories. So thank God for Netflix. At the end of the day, I want someone else to tell me a story. I don't want to have to think about it. So I watch the most mindless thing imaginable, just to turn it off. And even then, it's like, well, I would have done that a little different. But so it's not really ever turned off, but I'm comfortable with it being on. It's not, the job isn't stressful for me at all. I mean, I love it. I'd live it all the time. I'd never stop writing if I didn't have a family who'd like to see me once in a while.
Yeah. Oh, right. Good. Oh, that thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Those people. Yes. Okay. So my wife wants me to ask you this question as it relates to Bane, which I think is awesome, because I don't know the answer. She wants to know, does Bane have a love interest like Harley Quinn is to Joker?
Well, in his history, because he was born in prison with all men.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going there. Women are his blind side. It's the only thing he doesn't know about, because Bane's a smart guy. He's very educated. He's very sharp and intuitive, but he doesn't have any experience with women, and they're his blind side. So in the history of writing him over like 10 whatever years, he's always fallen for somebody, and it's always the wrong one. The only person that can wrap Bane around their finger is an attractive woman, and he'll basically go off script or go off his plan, and he always gets betrayed in the end, because he doesn't see it coming. Whereas no one else can get around Bane. No one else could fool Bane like that. So there's been a series. There's been Black Canary and Talia, Ra's al Ghul's daughter, who basically used and abused him.
Got it. Okay, this is good. I am so excited to be able to have answers in so many different ways. But what you do, sir, to me is amazing. I've always loved artists and people who can create things. Like for whatever reason, I like watching people who can paint or draw turn a blank sheet of paper into something. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And you do that same thing. And I think that's just an amazing talent. It's one I do not possess at all. and yet you've managed to carve and figure this out. And I think that's a message to everyone that's listening, as something that they should do as well. Now, you mentioned the book Clinton Cash. When is that available? Where can we get it? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's available through Amazon, through Barnes and Noble. It should be at any book retailer you go to, and we're supposed to be in Walmart and Sam's Club soon as well. So,
oh wow,
it's readily available. It's a number one. It was number one New York Times bestseller in the graphic novel area when it debuted, and for a couple of days it was number 5 on Amazon of all books.
Wow!
So it's doing okay.
Got it. So. And for those that have listened this far, and I know there's a few who are going to want to follow this, if they wanted to find out more about what you're up to, how can they track you down and see what you've got going on?
Basically just go to Amazon and it'll tell you what I've got coming up and everything else. Just put my name in, and there's about 30 pages of material I've done over the years.
Got it. Excellent. All right. So final question here. Because I know that this person is there, and your answer is probably going to be completely different than everybody else's so far. Let's pretend that somebody who's listening right now is, standing in front of what I call the superhero outfit store. They think they are ready to do this entrepreneurship thing. They're ready to pick their cape and their tights and go out there and save the world. However, in the back of their head, they have that voice. And I know you've dealt with that voice. You dealt with it all the times you were doing the work you didn't want to do, and all the times people told you no. And you've dealt with that voice that sometimes we're related to. Anytime we come up and say that I want to do something great, that voice is often present with us. What I want to know is, if you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that someone was actually going to do exactly what you said right now, and they were going to do it in the next 48 hours, what would you tell that person to do?
Oh my God. Call your mother.
I knew it was going to be different.
Call your mother, because you'll regret it. You'll regret it someday if you don't.
Got it. Got it. Understood completely. Sir, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to share your genius with the world, and most importantly, giving us some insight as to what it's like being in that industry and carving out your own corner and making a difference in so many different ways. We definitely appreciate the information that you shared with us, and I'm sure many will be able to follow your example a little bit closer. Thank you for your time here with the Cashflow Diary.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? That means you probably are wondering, what talent do I have? Well, here's what we've learned. Call mom. She might know. And ask her, because she could help you begin to take the next step into the direction that will allow your greatness to shine. And most importantly, you never know what impact that may have. You too, one day, could get the privilege of writing about your own government in comic book form. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.